Welcome to the Album of the Week podcast. My name is Vic. With me today, I have our co-host, Jesse. Jesse, how are you doing today?
Hey, what's up, Vic? I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm not doing too bad. I kind of wish that I would have been on the ball and got tickets to what I know you got tickets to. I missed out on getting tickets to Red Hot Chili Peppers in LA, but I guess I have a long time to figure it out. Did you get only one night or a couple nights?
Well, I got 12 shows booked already for the Chili Peppers, and yes, I got all 3 nights in LA.
All right, well, I'll have to get on it and figure it out. But besides that, we're just going to go ahead and get on the ball here and tell everyone that we are going to be making a switch from our Podbean podcast over to YouTube soon. Just go ahead and search Album of the Week podcast and subscribe if you can so you can get the updates on the new albums we do. On top of that, we are reviewing an album today by Of Mice and Men, and the album's called Cold War. It was just recently released here in September. Although I've heard of the name of the band, I had never really listened to their music, and I was kind of under the impression of a different style of music that they would play, but I was very surprised in the genre of music. We were just talking about this off air, that you also were familiar with the name, but not necessarily the music.
Yes, that's correct. I've never heard of this band's music before. I think it wasn't until recently I found out the name of this band, and the only reason I found out because I listened to another band called Off Monsters and Men, and I think I brought that name up to a coworker, and he's just like, "Oh, like Of Mice and Men?" I'm like, "I guess, but this is Off Monsters and Men." So I've never heard of this band until a few weeks ago. So let's get to it.
This band. Well, what I was getting to is that I was expecting more of like a rock pop type band, and
oh man, I totally agree with you on that one.
And it was not necessarily that. It was kind of like a metalcore, I guess you call it, which is just a nice way. Yeah, and it's just a nice way of saying heavy emo, I guess.
Yeah, that new metal sound.
It's definitely new metal, and I have my apprehensions on that style of music, but I still think that this album was kind of interesting, actually. When I first, got into the first couple tracks, it was jarring because, like I said, I was expecting something else, and boy, did I get something different. But let's. What were your kind of impressions when you started listening to it? Because, like I said, I was expecting something and got something different. What did you go into listening to it?
Well, I had the same thing. I thought it was going to sound way different than what this album sounds like, which is like that new metal, emo metal type of sound, whatever you want to call it. And what it did, it just brought back a bunch of flashbacks to like maybe the early mid 2000s, maybe 2005, 2006, when like that scene was very popular and upcoming, and everybody wanted to be like this emo metal hardcore kid. And I was just, man, this is like going down memory lane right now. I'm having all these flashbacks of this kind of genre of music that used to be somewhat popular in that time.
That time period of music, I mean, I wasn't so keen on it, but kind of looking back, it wasn't as bad as it felt during the time. I mean, I still don't think it's stuff that's gonna, like, some of the stuff is not gonna last throughout the years, and
right.
Some of it, I mean, a lot of it already faded away, and I guess the cream of the crop has kind of stuck around. And although I've never heard of this band, I mean, they've been doing it for a little while now, and they kind of stuck around. I think they started in that era of, emo rock, emo metal, and all the other different varieties of emo music there was, screamo and all that. And it definitely has a lot of different aspects of the emo type music scene. There was definitely some interesting parts of this album, and I think we're going to get right into it.
Good ones too that I want to talk about soon.
Yeah. There was some stuff that really surprised me even after that initial shock of not getting what you expected,
Mm-hmm.
and I think we're gonna get right into it. Let's do your love it and hate it. Let's see what if we have anything in common here.
Okay, let's see. I'll give you my hated, and just let me pick one because I have multiple. Not that it's a bad thing, but I want to make sure that I
That
got the best one. I guess the song I'm gonna have to go with is "The Hunger."
was for your hate
I
it.
am just not. Yeah, I hate it. I'm not a whole fan of the vocals, and throughout the whole song, I'm just not a fan of the way this. And there's quite a few tracks that I can say about this, but particularly this one, I just was not a fan of the vocal layout,
Yeah,
and that for
yeah.
me just kind of like did it. And I was just like, man, it's hard for me to listen to it because I felt like it had some good like guitar riffs, and then like whenever like the vocals kicked in and like the guitar kind of like turned down, I didn't like that. And that's not just for this track. There's a few tracks that did the same thing, but if I had to go with one, I picked the hunger.
You know what? It's funny that you said almost exactly what I wrote down in my notes. Like I highlighted the hunger for sure, in a bad way,
Yeah.
and but for the notes I put the guitar lick was good, and that's about it.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
you're right. And you're right. When the vocals came in, the guitar does go way down and kind of doesn't. It focuses on the wrong aspects of the song, and it was
Yeah.
interesting. It was interesting, but let's go ahead and continue with your love it.
My love it is the song Pain.
Pain.
I just love
Uh,
that it was a good angry intro, and I kind of wish like the whole album sounded like that. Like the track was heavy, and the breakdowns, like they were the type of breakdowns that you would just get in a mosh pit with and just like want to fight somebody. It was pretty good.
well, I think we're pretty on tune here because I also highlighted that track as a good thing.
Hmm.
But there was different. I actually mirrored your thoughts about the vocals on that track. My notes were the shrieking, which happens a lot in this album. It actually works on this track. He actually kind of honed in on the right type
Yeah.
of screaming and just singing. The mixture was good. And I think he was. And they also actually, and I've talked about this before, when bands actually take the time to think about how they're recording, and they
Hmm.
actually, or at least finish a song. There was actually also a stereo component where they split the left and right channel and gave you what they wanted in the left channel or in the right channel
Right.
for parts of the song, and
Hmm.
I thought that was really good as well. Okay, so I guess I'll give you my love and hate it. I want to say The Hunger, and that's definitely one of the ones that I really didn't like.
Hmm.
Um, but there was a track called it's a symbol for the negative sign, which
Oh,
is
right. Yeah.
supposed to
Yeah.
contrast the positive sign that they have later on for for track 11. Um,
Yes.
it was just boring. It was an industrial instrumental, uh,
Hmm.
like a Nine Inch Nails style industrial metal type instrumental, which could be interesting, but it wasn't. It was just kind of flat
Hmm.
and kind of
Yeah.
dull, and uh, and especially in contrast with the positive track, the track that was the positive, counterpart to it, um, which was beautiful. It was a beautiful synth instrumental, and I don't think they balanced it right. I don't. I mean, I know what they were going for, but it just didn't work for me. But The Hunger also was just a bad track. I didn't like it.
Yeah.
I didn't like it.
I'm
I
glad
didn't,
we
I didn't
agree
think
on
it was
that one.
good. Yeah, I didn't think it was good at all. So let's get into the things that we kind of liked and didn't like in this album in general. Um,
Okay.
what were you thinking about, like the general tones that you liked about this album, or the general ideas that you liked about this album?
I thought this guitar when it was, when the guitar was driving it, I think the band sounded really good. But I didn't like the idea, and we talked about this already. Like as soon as like the vocals kick in, like a lot of the guitar was turned down, or the riff went to a different completely sound, and I felt like sometimes it didn't really flow with the song or killed the momentum it had in the beginning, just to show off a new part with the vocals, and that's what I didn't
Uh,
really like about that either. It seemed like every single
yeah,
track was doing that.
Yeah, I agree with that. It seems like they really did have a problem with killing momentum that they did was really good actually in some parts.
Yeah, there's
Um,
some really good guitar riffs on this album, but like I said,
yeah,
like as soon as like the parts change, like it just stops and it just slows down and it's so stupid. I'm like, why are you doing this?
yeah, it just doesn't work the way they were doing it. Like they could have made small minor changes and it could have worked because the vocalist voice is not bad.
No, it's not.
Um, when he uses it appropriately, it's not bad. It just seems that he didn't really think about the big picture. He kind of was. I think he kind of fell into the idea of this is our sound, so we got to make it sound that way instead of naturally letting the song take you to where it needs to go.
Right.
You know, and I mean that was kind of a bummer. But I was impressed by the guitarist and more impressed by the drummer. I really kind of liked what he was doing. The drum beats were actually not super complicated, but they were very interesting and they were dynamic, and it was something that I wasn't expecting. And throughout the whole album, even the bassist was actually pretty good. At least together they were very good. And I think the odd man out was vocalist. There was a second vocalist on some of the tracks, and I thought he was really good. It's kind of a shame that some of these tracks could have been really good, but it seems like they got it in their own way here on a lot of these tracks. When they weren't trying to do their own thing, it just seemed forced, and it seemed like I've heard it before. It was difficult, but there was some tracks good at the end. There was some Away, which was a pretty good track. The decent chorus and good vocals. I think the lyricist needed to not necessarily the lyrics, but definitely the singing aspect. He should have. I don't know. I hate to say it, but just rethought what he was doing. I mean, it wasn't hard listening to the album. It wasn't completely terrible, but
No.
it just didn't. It was kind of sad to see that just certain things didn't work when they could have worked. There was good parts and they had such potential, and just these little things kept getting in their own way. It's hard making a perfect album, So there's going to be mistakes everywhere, and I just think that. I mean, I'm sure there's people that love this band and think this album is great, but I definitely think it had its problems. And with that, I think we're going to go right into the Rate It segment. And Jesse, what would you rate this album?
My school letter grade, because that's our grading system on this podcast. I'm gonna have to give it a C minus, maybe a C, but I'm leaning, but I'm giving it a C minus for now. I didn't find this whole album entirely, very enjoyable for the most part. It just left me asking more questions than anything else. So I didn't like that about this album. And it's just, I mean, it's got its goods. I really enjoyed the guitar playing on it, but I just wasn't a fan of their musical layout for this album, and that's why I had to give it a C minus.
I hear you. As for my Rate It, my school letter grade, I'm gonna give it a C plus. It's not terrible. It's not a terrible album by any stretch of the imagination, and it's not unlistenable. And it has its moments where it's good, and that's why I mean, even though it has its moments when it's bad as well, it's not overall bad. It's like each track is not overall bad. There's always something that at least is okay in the song, or at least good in the song, and I think that it's slightly above average, despite it being something unexpected. I think it's still enough that it's not terrible. And as opposite as it is to the last album we reviewed, where at least these people are creating music,
Right, they're actually in the studio making their own music with just a band and not like a billion producers and songwriters.
Yeah, well, I didn't look into how many, but I can can pretty much tell just by the way the songs are structured and the way the music is structured overall that it's a couple people writing this music. It's probably the band and maybe a producer that's helping them organize their thoughts and organize their music and put it together.
Right.
It's not people doing it for them. It's people helping them put it together, which is a big difference. And I can't ever really hate on that stuff, man, because it's hard making music. It's incredibly hard. And I think it's average. And I think if you're into the metalcore scene, I think it'd be worth a listen, But I think it was interesting enough to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I'll go back to this album very much. I might give more of their music a chance, though.
Yeah,
I think they had an interesting idea.
Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna go back
sound,
to. Yeah, I don't think I'll go back too often and pick up this album and give it a listen here and there. But like you said, I'll definitely check out some of their other albums and maybe I can make some comparisons and see if it sounds any different from the newer to the older. I mean, I've never heard this band like we said before, so. Maybe their older stuff sounds fucking amazing and we don't know about it and we're here fucking bashing the new album and I'm sorry, but
yeah, I don't think we're being too hard on the album. Like I mean, we'll admit that we're not experienced, or at least I'll admit that I'm not an experienced metalcore or hardcore
right.
music listener. I probably listen to much more metal than I listen to metalcore. My music sensibilities, which I'm trying to broaden, and this is the reason why we're kind of doing these podcasts and listening to new types of music and trying to listen to just different kinds of music. That's the reason why we're listening. We're trying to broaden our horizons. So maybe this album will be able to give us kind of a guideline for a different album in the future, and maybe we'll take into consideration that maybe it wasn't as bad as we originally thought. Well, I think next week we're going to be doing another a new album review. We're trying to get them to you as often as possible, but we've had some technical difficulties with the way we've been recording. And our schedules are always interesting to try to get together and trying to get.
We have very tentative schedules, so it's not always the easiest to get together.
Yeah, and we're always trying to get a third host on. Which is also kind of difficult. We're going to try to get them out as much as possible. And like I said, we're going to try to make the switch over to YouTube soon. And hopefully we're going to do this as much as we can and as often as we can and hopefully as regularly as we can. Hopefully next week. We'll try to go ahead and bring you another one next week.
For sure.
Hopefully you guys are enjoying us talk about music and rip on bands and love on bands and tell you what's good and what's bad, and email us at aotw.host@gmail.com or find us on Twitter at AotW Podcast. We love to talk about music. If you're ever interested in talking about music, you can hit us up there. If we ever get an email, maybe we'll talk about it on the show. That's going to be it for my host, Jesse, and for myself, Vic. Thank you for listening, and be kind to each other.
Thank you, guys. Have a good weekend.